Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today with our webinar, Stay Ahead of the Mandate, What Law Firms Need to Know to Stay Compliant. Today, I want to pass you over to my dear colleague, Matt Brown, and the CEO of CyberSmart, Jamie. Thanks ever so much, guys. Take it away.
Good afternoon, Jamie. How are you?
Very good.
Excellent. So naturally, we're here to talk today about CyberSmart and the impacts that this has on potentially law firms explicitly. So let's jump straight in and, well, perhaps we ought to do some introductions. So for everyone watching, hi, my name is Matt Brown. I'm one of the solutions consultants here at 101 Data. My role here is predominantly around introducing solutions to businesses and to really kind of get under the hood and understand what their business challenges are and support them with simple innovation and clarity. And Jamie, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course, Matt. I'm obsessed with making cybersecurity accessible. It says it on the presentation. I think this is a massive area of complexity and challenge for a lot of organizations. I'm obviously going to dive into the relevance for law firms throughout the next 30 minutes or so. But that challenge has been one that has existed for a long time. CyberSmart has come up to almost 10 years old now. And when we started, we said we want to make cybersecurity simple and accessible for more firms. And that's really what's driven me and our company. We work with thousands of organizations now across the UK. So yeah, how do you take a really difficult, complex and constantly evolving challenge and make it accessible to more organizations? That's what we do.
Absolutely. Built on passion is the best way.
Built on passion, yeah, exactly.
And doing an awful lot of good at them in doing so. So today we'll set the scene a little. Here is our agenda for the next kind of 30 minutes or so. We'll cover the kind of the latest in industry updates, that upcoming legal aid agency mandate, of course, taking effect on the 1st of October. So time is ticking for business to make sure they have that in place ahead of that. I know you'll have your feelings around what is cyber essentials and what that means, and where CyberSmart can add an awful lot of impact there. I believe you have some success stories to share with us too, which I'm very much looking forward to hearing about. And finally, around support for legal professionals and kind of what CyberSmart can do to support that. And then we'll open up the floor for questions from our attendees here today. Fab. So the legal sector does vital work protecting its clients, but how good is the legal sector at protecting itself?
Unfortunately, not very good, Matt. It's the short answer. And it's actually probably twofold. It's because, like many organizations, a lot of particularly smaller organizations don't invest enough in understanding and managing the risk is one factor. However, I think in this scenario particularly, legal firms are significantly more attacked than other types of firms because of the types and the extent of data they hold for their customers and as part of what they do, essentially. Legal firms are a vital part of our society, and we give them lots of information and they process lots of information, and therefore they are increasingly targeted by bad actors. So it's kind of a tale of two stories. According to Law Society Gazette, the number of successful attacks against law firms rose 77% in 2024, so almost doubled. Not this slide yet. Those are some more stats, but we'll come on to those. But almost doubled in 2024. So like you're seeing a significant increase in the number of attacks. But I think probably more telling, so the ICO actually published a list of all their breaches and what firms are attacked and what types of attacks. Law firms were the worst performing industry for cyber attacks. And again, I'll come back to where I started. There's two factors here. One is there probably isn't enough investment, like many organizations. But secondly, there's also an increase in the amount of activity targeted at law firms.
Absolutely. So kind of what we're taking from that is law firms are high value targets, and because of the types of data that they're handling, they are kind of top of the hit list, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Should we move on to some facts and figures?
Yes, I think probably the one I'll call out from here is the fact that a third of law firms have no cyber mitigation in place. So 35% of law firms without any cyber mitigation. And I think really what we're going to touch on today is a bit more about how you can mitigate those risks. I think if you can take three things away from this presentation, one is to go and get Cyber Essentials, because it's going to become a mandate in many cases, but it's also a really good baseline cybersecurity requirement. Secondly, it's to go and get cyber insurance, or at least understand, if you do have it, what the benefits are, in particular around the incident response. The third would be to use CyberSmart to do 1 and 2. But even if you do 1 and 2, I'll be happy from the outcome.
Absolutely. It's doing an awful lot of good. It does set that kind of base level that much higher. I believe it's around 97-98% in terms of your kind of mitigated risk as a consequence of being up by doing your Cyber Essentials. So whether you're using CyberSmart or not, look what you're able to achieve by just getting involved in this initiative. Good stuff. Some important facts and figures here to take a look at. Is there any you wanted to draw any particular attention to here, Jamie?
As I mentioned, probably just the last one, the fact that a lot of firms have no cyber mitigation in place. Very similar stats across other types of controls as well. So majority of businesses not doing any form of security awareness training. A lot of organizations lack security policies, never mind incident response and disaster recovery. It probably is quite a lot of firms that have written a policy. As many organizations will know, it's not just the case of like writing the policy, but actually being able to implement it when you need. Is it been tested, etc. So yeah, pretty woeful level of implementation. I wouldn't say that's specific to the legal sector. I'd say that's generally businesses with good reason, right? Most people run their organizations with the aim of delivering their product or their service. Cybersecurity isn't the core part of what they do. It's increasingly becoming important to operate your organization.
Absolutely, and this is something that's not going away either. We're seeing year on year those numbers slowly increasing. 77% of law firms being attacked in 2024. That's an incredible number. If you haven't been affected by one, you're one of the few who hasn't. Good stuff. Typical reasons for not investing in cybersecurity.
I guess these are age-old. It's too expensive to set up and maintain, and I definitely there are some ways of approaching cybersecurity. A lot of law firms often rely on other professionals and experts in their industry. So as soon as you go and get a consultant to come in and do a gap analysis and a remediation plan, and then you've got to buy all this additional software and hardware, and then you've got to maintain it all, the cost can definitely rack up. One of the key takeaways of this discussion is really around the basics don't need to be super expensive, like patching your systems, which is one of the most common ways that the bad actors will get into your systems. Training your staff can actually be really quite cost effective and accessible. And in fact, it delivers the vast majority of the benefit. So it's really like Pareto's principle. You get 80% of the value from doing 20% of the work. And I think if you approach cyber like that, then actually it can be something that you can budget for reasonably, and you can get it set up and maintain. I'll put emphasis on the maintain bit. You get more value from doing the basic stuff consistently than you do from doing the big bang stuff once a year or so.
Absolutely. prevention is definitely the best medicine in this case.
Mm-hmm.
The fines across the industry are significant, and in terms of kind of relativity, the outlay that you would associate with getting your cybersecurity into a sensible and a reliable manner is not as expensive as you would think, but it's substantially less than what would happen if you were in the unfortunate event where you were attacked.
You can, as you know, Matt, you can do most of this good work with the existing systems and tooling that you, broadly speaking, that you have in place, whether it's changing your Microsoft configuration, setting up phishing filters, for example, setting up a patching regime. You'll have to work with your managed service provider to do so, but you can often do this without big systems changes. Many on the call will know Windows 10 is going to end of life by Microsoft. So there's a move to Windows 11. Hopefully, most people's hardware already supports that. There might be some licensing involved. That's probably the most disruptive part of what you could expect of implementing something like Cyber Essentials. The rest of it is working with your existing hardware and software that you broadly deployed, making sure it's all set up correctly. I guess, sorry, go on, Matt.
No, you're absolutely right. I was only going to agree with everything you just said. It is a matter of just engaging with your MSP or your IT reseller and moving forward with those deliverables. The truth is, these things do come to end of life. There's good reason why they do, and it just brings that level up that one notch further.
Exactly. Yeah. iOS 26 dropped yesterday as well, didn't it? Yeah.
It did. Everything is very rounded, I have to say.
Rounded and transparent. I heard glasses back, right? It's that you might remember the old Windows where they had a transparent hovering window over that too. But yeah, I the point here is really there's always new software updates coming out. Core part of making sure you stay on top of it. But the challenge a lot of organizations faced is almost embedding that habit and that process and around constantly keeping things up to date.
And something like patching doesn't need to be invasive. It's a silent partner that works in the background and just alerts you to the fact that you really need to restart your machine, get those latest that latest update installed, working on your unit, and your compliance levels are met, and you're good to go. Crack on with what you're good at and get on with business.
I wanted to pick up on the last point here. I actually look at it at two ends of the spectrum because I've heard both sides of this story really. One, if you say have an antivirus, it is definitely not sufficient as a single point solution to cybersecurity. Just as any single measure is not going to be comprehensive enough. Like we've trained our staff so we don't need to update our systems. Also not true. So you have to do a relatively small, and we'll talk about 5 areas that you should look at. A relatively small list of things, but yeah, single point solution isn't gonna cover everything. On the flip side, you may have already invested in a best in class managed detection and response, or MDR as it's known, like some kind of really sophisticated or advanced capability. You may have bought really expensive piece of firewall, but if that's not properly configured, if it's not being monitored, or the alerts are not being responded to, it's as good as not having one effectively. So on the flip side of it, you may have already invested in a lot of different tools, and you may want to think about, are they delivering value? So yeah, it's trying to find that balance really.
Absolutely right. And this is one thing where 101 Data Solutions can support our customers with absolutely that. It doesn't necessarily always require an investment. It's just about properly configured setups, not relying on that single solution as the be all and end all. If it's not backed up with a proper policy behind it, you're not changing your passwords every 30 days, then things slip through, and that's just as dangerous as not having anything at all. Okay, consequences of poor cybersecurity.
I promise we're gonna get more positive in the second half. I often find these discussions start off talking about how bleak the world is and how much more we have to do, and essentially the gap, because that's, I think, important to highlight where we're at collectively. These are some of these you may have heard of. So Legal Aid Agency themselves actually had a data breach earlier on this year, back in April. You may have been following this on the National Cybersecurity Centre or seen it in legal publications. Obviously, in itself, that's probably quite concerning and very significant. I think for me, when I first saw this, I thought there's definitely going to be no flexibility on their mandate that they're rolling out, given what's happened to them themselves. I think they're going to be saying, if this can happen to us, it can definitely happen to all the other organizations we also work with. And it's really underscored the importance of cybersecurity. And often when there are no incidents, people can become accustomed to the, like, oh, actually we're doing enough and we're secure enough. Most likely it's because you just haven't been targeted. In some cases may not have even detected there's an incident or bad actors underway. So the dwell time can vary from days to weeks to months. That's the time a bad actor is in the system. So a lot of times it's just simply not visible what's going on. Legal Aid Agency obviously became visible, and I think that's going to make sure that the mandate is going to go through and no last minute changes. DDP Law Limited, similar attack vector as it's known, or source of attacks of brute forces, where a criminal usually, or more generally a bad actor, tries lots of different usernames, passwords. Usually they have a username and they're trying to guess a password, and often works most effectively when there's only a single factor of authentication. So an email or a username and a password rather than two factors. Two factors makes it significantly harder to perform this type of attack. So they were able to steal about 32 gig of data. That's about the size of an old school USB drive, a thumb drive. But they were actually fined by the ICO. And I think one really interesting thing, because I'm probably boring like that, I read the ICO notices, is they start to mention increasingly the fact that the organization hadn't implemented Cyber Essentials, so therefore they weren't doing the basics. And so I think there's something you can read into that story is, when the ICO come, data breaches are going to happen to everyone, all organizations, no matter how much you invest. At some point in time, something's going to happen. When the ICO come knocking on your door, you want to be able to turn around and say, we actually took reasonable steps to protect ourselves. We've done Cyber Essentials. We've done a data privacy impact assessment. We've got some policies. We're actually using them. And the ICO is going to look much more kindly on an organization that's done those things and actually is just unlucky or has been targeted, rather than an organization that hasn't done the basics. So that's quite interesting. Gunster, Yoakley and Stewart actually out in the US and Florida. So they had to pay a $8.5 million settlement. As you might know, US is litigation heavy. That data breach actually happened back in 22, but they settled in 24 as about 10,000 individuals' personal and health data. So I probably don't need to tell this audience data breaches happening all the time in the legal sector because of the sensitivity of the amount of data that's accessible. So yeah, we expect to see more of these types of breaches coming in, but I think we'll probably switch to, well, firstly the mandate, then we'll talk about what you can do to not be in one of these buckets going forward.
Absolutely. Should we talk a little bit about the new mandate?
Yes, of course. So hopefully many of you have heard of this already. It might be just a piece of jargon on some web page somewhere, so we'll try and demystify it a little bit. So firstly, the timeline and what you need to do. So 1st of October 2025, so not long from now, everyone that is delivering criminal legal aid, so to the Legal Aid Agency, under the 2025 standard crime contract, has to hold Cyber Essentials or an equivalent approved certification. So something like ISO 27001, for example, which is obviously far more effort, much bigger piece of work we can touch on in the Q&A if people are interested. So you have to have some kind of certification in place. Cyber Essentials is accessible, probably the easiest, most accessible way of meeting the requirement. Cyber Essentials itself is based on self-assessment. So you'll go through a questionnaire using a platform, essentially detailing your practices you use. It's an objective questionnaire, so it looks at things like, do you have 2FA on all your accounts? It looks at things like, are you patching your devices? Are people using regular user accounts, or are they all set up as admin? So we'll ask you several questions around baseline cybersecurity measures or cyber hygiene. And following that, you will then be assessed by an auditor, and they'll provide you with some feedback. And then hopefully you're all good. You've implemented any of the changes required, and you'll get certified. That whole process can happen in as quick as a day or two, assuming you've got all the controls in place. Work your MSP to implement those controls as well. Yep. Importantly, I guess for the legal mandate, is there are going to be checks. You have to declare the certification in your tender. The legal aid agency will actually be checking up and making sure that you have this within 3 months of commencement of your contract, and failure to maintain it may result in contract sanctions. So it's going to be a requirement for anyone that is criminal legal aid providers. I would say, more generally speaking, given that the legal sector is one of the most, if not the most targeted sector, it's probably good for everyone to do regardless.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I think it's important to know that there is that small grace period, but for those who haven't already got something underway right now, but that clock is ticking. It really is time to do something about it and start to implement Cyber Essentials or ISO 27001 if you can. Excellent.
If you can, and you've got the budget for it, Matt, you're probably talking about a 10x increase in investment and effort to roll. It is probably more if you're already doing it.
Absolutely. You if you're an enterprise size business and you've got some ISO already in place, fantastic. You're doing a lot of the right things. Certainly for those smaller firms who will certainly rely upon their legal aid contract. If you haven't already done so, now is your time. Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. Should we talk a little bit about the differences between them and perhaps where they might be, where each business might suit one better than the other?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back 11 years, I guess, to the start of the scheme, and just talk a little bit about why it was introduced by the UK government and how that's evolved over time as well. I won't go into the technical details, but happy to dive into those in the Q&A if people are interested in, like, what are the controls and how do you evidence them, for example. So 11 years ago, the government decided that there were far too many breaches happening because people didn't have the basics in place, and they spent the time looking at how incidents happened and what were the causes, and they came up with 5 areas where the majority of attacks were happening. And if we could implement those, at the time it was actually at least 80% of all attacks would be reduced. There's been further evaluation of this, and the figure's probably closer to, as you mentioned, 96, 99%. There's various stats out there as well, the vast majority basically. So it was implemented there in order to be an objective, relatively simple and accessible standard for all organizations to implement a cyber baseline. So it's been really, really successful as far as certification schemes and assurance schemes go. There's been over 100,000 certifications issued, maybe even 200,000 now, actually. Wow. That's a significant number of certifications. That's not that many organizations. There's not as many organizations as that number, but still tens of thousands of organizations are certifying and maintaining the scheme. It's then been rolled out across areas like public sector. We're seeing it in things like the legal sector, and increasingly areas like supply chain security. It provides a really streamlined way of people demonstrating they're doing the basics when it comes to cyber. And just to, I guess, illustrate this point, because we touched on ISO, CyberSmart as an organization is Cyber Essentials certified. We have Cyber Essentials Plus. We also have ISO 27001. So for us, it actually forms part of the baseline of our broader information assurance program. So really good starting point for everyone. And even if you are working towards ISO or you have ISO, I'd still actually recommend looking at this because it'll make sure that you consistently apply the baseline and reduce the risk too.
Completely agree with you. And I think it's also important to kind of demonstrate here that the reputational gains that you get from having a good cyber baseline too, it's demonstrating to your supply chain, to your customers, that you're doing everything, or you're doing a lot of the right things to protect their data. You're a good, reliable. You're taking all those sensible steps. Your data is valuable to us. We will take care of it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, if I'm looking to, as an individual, if I'm looking at like for a lawyer for something, then I'll look at what they do to protect my data, and I'll look for things like Cyber Essentials, a badge there, to see that it's more than just a page that says we take your data security very seriously. The number of times I think you've read that and thought, do you? And then you'll be copied into an email with 30 other people, and you're like, not quite sure. So yeah, I think it's something that consumers will look for, definitely something that businesses will look for, and increasingly organizations like the Legal Aid Agency are mandating.
Yeah, it's a badge of honor you can put on your website that says you are taking this seriously, and you are doing the right things. And you're right, it does unlock a number of other things too. If you want to be working with public sector organizations, are your competitors already Cyber Essentials Plus? Are they, or do they have Cyber Essentials? Are they more likely to be able to get that bit of business over yourself if you're not already working to that level? There's a lot of reasons why you should do this. It's not so it's multi-channeled. It's not just about doing the right thing by all your clients, because you should be doing that, and you're now demonstrating it. But now it could open up doors to other sectors that you may not already be working with.
Yeah, and I'd add, as a business owner, it also gives you the peace of mind that you're doing the right things in place. Like I sleep comfortably knowing that we're investing in our cybersecurity. We're doing everything possible, especially because we're a cybersecurity company. It's really important for us to do so. If we didn't have this evidence, like you're just relying on, I don't know, a bit of hope, a bit of luck to not be targeted, hope that people would do the right thing in the situation. That's obviously not a dependable business or risk management strategy. Oh, you asked one more question as well, Matt, about the difference between the two. The Cyber Essentials Plus is actually the same standard as the Cyber Essentials. It's an audited version of the Cyber Essentials. So whereas with Cyber Essentials, you'll fill in the questionnaire. An auditor will only be able to assess based on what you've written. So if you say you're doing all these things, they will assume that you are, unless, of course, you contradict yourself somewhere in there. We update all our systems regularly, and that's once a year type thing. So yeah, you have to be following the guidelines. Some updates, for example, have to happen within 14 days for higher and critical vulnerabilities. That's one of the requirements. So that they'll essentially test that what you've said you're doing, you actually do have in place. And it's usually a relatively short period of time. So usually an hour or two, maybe with an auditor, can be done remotely, where they'll go through and they'll look at your device, and they'll, for example, one of the checks is to look at your device. Like, do you have your antivirus running? Are you logged in as your regular user? Try and click some links. Does it some fake viruses, so not real viruses, but things that will trigger an alert in your antivirus? Does that trigger the alert or not? Does your emails get filtered for bad stuff? So they'll basically just check that your defense is in place. You can kind of imagine it like a friendly penetration test, or someone testing your systems. However, with Cyber Essentials, it's not to try and find new holes or weaknesses. It's actually just to check what you said you do on the Cyber Essentials questionnaire. So same standard, it's just done with an auditor, following your Cyber Essentials as completion.
Absolutely. Thank you for that insight. Good stuff. should we make it a bit more of a positive note from here and talk about some success stories?
Yes, definitely. So there is hope. There is hope for I think all organizations, and what I think probably some of the big takeaways is it's probably far more accessible, costs less money, takes you less time than you might think to actually get this in place. Working with someone like 101, they'll step you through the process. They've got the tools, the technology. They know how to get organizations through these processes, so they can do it quite cost effectively and efficiently as well. Just a couple to call out. A couple of success stories. So like where there's client pressure. So in Haderwood's case, client pressure basically should prove your security. Worked with an MSP like 101 to achieve Cyber Essentials Plus. So they went for the audited version of the standard, and that allowed them to access tenders and strengthen that client trust as well. So if you are probably slightly larger firm, or you want to be one of the top firms, it may be worth investing a little bit extra and doing the plus as well. Slightly different case study from Chambers. So looking at the amount of data that Radcliffe Chambers was holding, wanted to protect that, again chose to implement Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. Went through the gap. So one of the first things you do as you go through the questionnaire is you're effectively doing a gap analysis. So you'll answer bunch of questions, you'll say yes to 10, you'll say maybe to 10, and you'll say no to 10. That's effective your plan to go away and make sure that those things are in place. Some of that will be configuring your existing tooling and technology. Some of it will be process related. Some of it might involve educating people on, like, okay, when you get a new personal device, you have to enroll it in our corporate systems in this way. You have to make sure you keep that up to date, for example. But ultimately, what that allowed for the Chambers is competitive advantage, reassurance of clients, and improving their market position. I think it's essentially a common theme, really. You want to win business, you want to demonstrate to your customers your security, and you want to actually test that stuff's in place. That gives you a compelling reason to go ahead and do these things.
Absolutely. Nice to hear it works, and this is the result of that.
Yes, it does work, man. We actually work with over 6,000 organizations across the UK to do just this. Many in the legal sector, many in other sectors as well. So it's definitely something that works for organizations. Customers are really happy. I'm really happy when I see people get through the process, especially if they start and I'm not quite sure. It seems like a lot of work. Seems really expensive. You get them to the end, they're like, "Oh, thank you for helping us." I mean, have a look on Trustpilot or something and just see what people say. It's actually not as daunting as it might first appear.
Absolutely, and I can vouch for that, having helped a number of businesses get through these motions too. It doesn't need to be scary or daunting. It's just about tidying up, doing your cyber hygiene, bringing that standard up, and you know what? You'll get real used to it real quick. You don't have to save local copies everywhere. There are such sensible steps that you can take that just make sense when you understand what the impacts are. And Cyber Essentials does bring your attention to just that. How can CyberSmart help legal professionals?
I think I've got 6 points, so I won't dwell too much on these, because also I'm quite interested in the Q&A and having broader discussion about what the audience think, really. So some of the things we do at CyberSmart, we've built our own software called CyberSmart Active Protect that runs on your devices, your laptops, desktops, your mobile devices. Really nice, friendly, accessible app. It actually tells you exactly what it's looking for. It's not some hidden agent running in the background, and that checks your systems every 15 minutes for the stuff that is contained in Cyber Essentials. So do you have any vulnerabilities? We'll flag those to you. Do you have any patches available? Are you running as an admin or not? Etc. It will tell you that Windows 10 is coming to end of life and you need to update it. Things like that just keeps you one step ahead. And I think that's a really important part of cyber, as I mentioned earlier, is the maintenance bit is just as important. It's like you can't just go to the doctor once and then you're done for the rest of your life. You need to constantly make sure that you're doing these checkups. In the cyber world, That means you have to do them relatively frequently. So our app checks every 15 minutes to do so. A bit broader, we help with things like policies, like writing policies. We give a bunch of templates. Your MSP will often help you with this type of stuff. So things that help you to go through the process of, like we talked about GDPR, data privacy impact assessments, etc. If you don't already, especially if you're a smaller firm, you don't already have these in place, that we give you a head start on getting that in place. We have security awareness training. So our whole platform has all these features built into it to make it as simple as possible. We've got role-specific training. We look at things specific for the legal sector as well, and general cybersecurity awareness training. If you hop onto the next slide, Matt, I'll talk about, right at the start, I said there's 3 things people should take away from the webinar. 1 is to get Cyber Essentials, 2 is to get cyber insurance, and 3 is to use CyberSmart to do 1 and 2. One of the major benefits of the cyber insurance, I think, is the incident response. And this is my opinion rather than a broker telling you this, but this component of cyber insurance is probably less well understood or and therefore valued than many others. But think about what happens when someone in your office says, I think something's going on, like this has happened, like I've opened my screen, or we've got an email, or I think I've done something wrong type thing. What do you do for the next 24, 48 hours is such a critical part. It's actually where the vast majority of costs are incurred, is the breach response or the incident response phase. It's where you can turn it from a potentially catastrophic incident to something that's relatively small and contained. And so the incident response piece is really important. That's included with all the insurance that we offer as part of the package. So you get access to a 24/7 breach response hotline with people that are trained in dealing with it. They see it day in, day out. You know, they've got people calling them with, I've sent an email to the wrong person through to someone's put a ransomware note on my desktop and we can't access our servers. So they know what to do, including reporting requirements, talking to the ICO, PR, like how do you communicate this to your customers or your shareholders, etc. So that's a really important part. You actually get that insurance. Importantly, with the insurance that we provide, the first 48 hours of that is actually non-excess deductible. So it doesn't actually take off your excess or your coverage limit. It's a really, really valuable part of the insurance proposition. If I haven't sold insurance by now, I probably won't, but I'm not allowed to sell insurance. I'm just allowed to advise on what we can do. It's a really key part of that. The other 2 points on here, obviously, government endorsed, already talked about that quite extensively. The insurance more broadly, following the incident, will also help with things like regulatory fines, client compensation if needed, and more broadly, getting back to a good place for your organization.
Absolutely. Complete cyber confidence. So this is all the different areas within CyberSmart.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I think there's been an evolution in the space, in the cyberspace, from selling products or point products that do specific things. We talked about antivirus already, through to solutions. And I feel like the next evolution is really towards outcomes. It's what do you really want as a business owner? You want peace of mind, you want confidence. So we really focus on how do we deliver confidence. We've got lots of ways we do that, lots of things we can provide to organizations. I won't go through these in detail. Ultimately, we want to make sure that the partners we work with, like 101 and your customers that you work with, are as secure as they possibly can be, but ultimately have confidence that their systems are going to work the way they need to, that if there is an incident, they can deal with it effectively. So that's what we are laser focused on.
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. That's exactly what I think you need to be objective when it comes to cyber security, and knowing that you've got not just the systems in place, but the the plans in place to that back that up. We know exactly where to head and who to talk to, where to report these issues as and when they occur, because inevitably they will. Fab. Of course, here at 101, we are here to help. We work and partner with the likes of CyberSmart for absolutely this reason. So for those of you in our audience today, if you haven't already done what you need to do to be compliant for the 1st of October, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hold your hand and get you through what you need to achieve Cyber Essentials for the 1st of October. Then I think we should open up to the floor, Jamie.
So we have a question here. Does Cyber Essentials requirement change every year, or does it remain the same?
It's a really good question. What's not changed in the last 11 years has been the 5 control areas. So the areas like access control, configuration devices, patching, of all those are the 5 control areas have all stayed the same. However, the specific questions do change. There was a big update earlier on this year called Willow. So they're actually named after hills in Malvern, which is where IASME, the accreditation body, is based. So the latest update, Willow, introduced not significant technical changes, so not a lot of things you would have to go and do, but actually a lot more clarification and a lot more accessibility and understanding what is a home worker or a BYOD, what's in scope and what's not in scope. So they're increasingly clarifying the standard. I think one thing that the government's learned is that the standard works really, really, really well for reducing cyber risk. And so I think they don't want to make massive changes. So yeah, generally you're probably looking at 95% of the questionnaire is going to be similar things year over year.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, there's no other questions so far. So thanks ever so much for your time today, Jamie and Matt. It was really, really interesting. If you do have any more questions, please let us know and we'll be happy to help you. But thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jamie. Really insightful.
Cheers, Matt. Thank you, Natasha.